Today, I'm going to be giving you all my 6sense channel strategy. I was recently doing some work and an audit on one of my clients on 6sense, and I realized that this could be a really great podcast topic. And normally, these type of strategies and audits and recommendations come with like one of my paid packages for my services. So you guys are kind of getting like an exclusive look right now, because I'm all about sharing knowledge and sharing resources. And I kind of wanted to do this as like a thank you to all of my listeners for just being dedicated to listening to my podcast. I really appreciate it. And on that note, if you haven't already subscribed and or rated my podcast, it would mean the world to me if you did that. So thank you. And diving into 6sense. If you haven't used it before, 6sense is an intent platform that gives marketers the ability to capitalize on buyers' behavior under what they call as quote unquote the dark funnel. And so I'm not going to spend too much time on today's episode talking about like what 6sense is. What I would like to do instead is have those type of recommendations for how to get started with 6sense. If you are unfamiliar with 6sense and you do want to learn more, you can go to their website at 6sense.com. But for those of you that have recently purchased 6sense or are nearing your implementation and are looking for some strategies on how to get started and kind of maximizing that investment, I'm hoping that this episode is for you. The best way that I have been able to use 6sense is by allowing it to do what it does best, which is to offer display ads to my audience. So the biggest thing that I want to highlight here is that these are display ads. Okay, so it's imperative to not rely on getting that click. We cannot rely on getting that click, okay? So I worked with 6sense a few times, both when I was in-house and now, working on some of the consulting stuff with it. So my recommendations come from playing in it, like hands-on in the tool, as well as seeing that impact down funnel and with multi-channels as well. So the biggest thing for 6sense to work is that you need to make sure that you are optimizing for brand awareness and not necessarily like a one-to-one conversion. This is not a cost per click platform, it's a cost per impression platform. So what you want to do is optimize for the impressions and not necessarily to get that click. Okay, so this is really important. And another thing is don't just mirror what you're doing in like Google Ads or in 6sense, or I'm sorry, in Google Ads or in LinkedIn directly into 6sense. That's not going to work. So a lot of strategies right now are doing content downloads or even, some of ungated content pieces. So part of that I think could be translated strategically to 6sense, but don't just mirror everything that you're doing, just copy and paste and call it a day, and make sure that you're really taking a look at how 6sense works best and then finding a way to either replicate that strategy within 6sense or if you need to, coming up with a brand new strategy, okay? So the biggest thing when it comes to demand gen, like as a whole, is that you really have to understand how to use all the different channels separately in the best way that they're meant to be used, right? And then finding that strategy to integrate them all together. And you can absolutely integrate these strategies between Google Ads, LinkedIn, 6sense, and whatnot. But I just want to caution that you don't want to just copy what you're doing on a couple of those other platforms and like just call it a day. Another big call out for 6sense before we dive into kind of the approach for that strategy. I want to preface it with the predictive buying stages that 6sense offers. And so they're a little bit different than what a marketer would traditionally label each stage in the funnel. And so it might be a little confusing for some. So I want to make sure that we're able to break that down. But based on the ICP that you set up inside of 6sense, that's part of the implementation and configuration side of it. They start tracking any type of like activity scores from your ICP and those accounts. And they model that into a picture of what they call like that buyer's journey. And so they have the stages of target, awareness, consideration, decision, and purchase. And so they sound really similar to what we're used to hearing from a marketing perspective, but it's a little bit different when we start getting down to kind of the decision and purchasing level. So for the target stage, these are essentially those accounts that are in your ICP that don't have any or have like very little intent or activity or awareness of you. And so the strategy here needs to be very high level awareness, especially if, this is kind of like the open market for you to conquer. Like if they've never heard of you before, really making sure that you take that into consideration. For the awareness stage, so these are for the accounts that are starting to begin to show some kind of intent. So this is where their funnel, quote unquote, begins to fill in. So these are your top of funnel accounts that still need that higher level messaging, but could definitely be a little bit more aware than the accounts that you have listed inside of your target stage. For the consideration stage, this one is roughly kind of like the mid-funnel stage where accounts are showing a lot more intent, and they're showcasing that engagement with the keywords and or your ads. So 6sense picks up on that type of engagement, and then based on that score or activity, they roll that into the stage of consideration. For the decision stage, so this is where it gets a little bit different than what us marketers are used to. So this one are those accounts that are actively searching for a solution. And so this is kind of a lower hanging fruit if you've recently acquired 6sense and you're looking to go after accounts that are in market. So this one would be a really good place to start because they're already actively searching for a solution like yours, if not already yours. And so this one is essentially that they're starting to show that they're doing that research and they're beginning kind of like that decision-making stage. Whereas in a traditional like marketing funnel, this is normally around the consideration phase, so a little bit different in wording. And then you have the purchase stage. And so these are going to be the accounts that 6sense deems most likely, based on their activity, to be opening an opportunity soon. So very similar to kind of that decision stage where they've indicated that they are in market and they're doing a little bit more research. And then they bring in their 6sense brings in their AI feature to basically say, like, based on, the accounts that you have in Salesforce, in addition to, what these accounts are searching, they give them a score in terms of like that predictive of how soon an opportunity is going to be opened, and then the percentage of an opportunity being opened as well. And so a little bit different than what we're used to on a marketing side from the buyer's funnel. So I want to make sure that that we call that out. Diving into the channel strategy. So the easiest way to get started with 6sense is to leverage their native in-market predictive model. So that's what we just talked about, the target awareness, consideration, etc. Because they have all the coding and the tagging that's set up with it that has that predictive model. And so if you're just getting started, you could definitely just leverage that kind of out of the box and a broader sense and a broader go-to-market strategy and let those predictive insights then guide you to slice and dice based on what you're seeing from the data. So a couple thoughts for each segment. For the awareness ones, you can do two things. For the traditional demand gen model, you can set up like a value prop messaging with your logo and just get that messaging out like real quick, who you are, what you do, why it's important, why it matters. And then the second part to that will be for more like an ABM approach or account-based marketing approach. And you can do the same thing in terms of like the value prop and the brand ads to your target accounts. But if you're doing an ABM approach, then I recommend you slice and dice this awareness stage based on however you're slicing and dicing for your ABM. So that could be for industry or persona, right? Or whatever those criteria are for your ABM approach. 6sense also allows you to run video ads. I love a good explainer video personally, and I've seen really good success with showcasing in explainer video within 6sense. So definitely from like an awareness perspective, that would be something for you to consider. Moving on to the consideration segment. So I really like adding social proof on ads, quotes, why customers are choosing you and type of data points, anything that would like at a glance make me stop and be like, damn, like that's a really impressive quote or stat. And again, you can do this two-pronged based on your traditional demand gen models and or however you want to segment it for your ABM approach. For the decision stage, I mentioned this one was low-hanging fruit. And so what I like to do is offer the opportunity to take a product tour if you have that capability, if possible. So that kind of lets them, as they're in market, as they've already shown that they're doing this type of research, if you are able to offer that product tour, that would be really valuable to kind of see, if your UI is better than your competitors, to give them that sense of why you guys are better. And again, you can leverage some quotes here too and kind of support that journey. I like to add, if you have a really strong customer success team or a really strong customer support team, and that's why you win deals against competitors, putting that messaging in the ads there too, supporting that decision making and supporting it with those type of like quotes and social proof. For the purchase stage, these can be supporting messages that can prompt them to take that next action, like start prioritizing your employee experience, for example, or start retaining talent and kind of giving them, that get started, like start doing this, start thinking about this. And so I think those are really useful for the display ads with those that are inside of the purchase stage. What is also really cool about 6sense is that you can integrate it with your Salesforce. And so if you are using Salesforce as one of your CRMs, you can pull the accounts that are listed as in pipeline, or you can even do this for your closed lost accounts as well. And you can run ads toward them to support that pipeline journey and or to create some of those win back campaigns to win back some of those deals. And you can also build customer segments directly inside of 6sense as well. And you can have that predictive model start telling you if they're starting to search for additional keywords, maybe competitor keywords or market keywords. And even if they haven't showcased that level of the capability to churn, maybe some of the insights from 6sense could offer that as well. And if you're starting to see that, right, you can run some reinforcement ads and you can trigger those type of tasks within Salesforce for your CS to follow up with them and just check in and pulse check and see what they can do for that account to not churn. So a couple different ways that we could layer in data, but like I said, if you're just getting started, start with the basics, leverage what 6sense is telling you in terms of like their market stages, and then let them tell you how to slice and dice to further capitalize on that intent. You can start like having those who are in the target or the awareness stage, and you can have somebody who is at a website visit of 0 and those who are on a website visit of like maybe 3, like you could slice and dice those if you wanted it, because 0 is a whole different story than if somebody's been to your website about 3 times. So again, just make sure you're not spraying and praying, but if you're just looking for a good way to get out of the gate and start using 6sense, I recommend to go a little bit more broad and not run too many like super small micro campaigns because that's not going to give you the overarching data that's going to help you understand how your accounts move through the different stages, some of the keywords that they're searching, and that's going to be invaluable to better understand how to slice and dice and kind of capitalize on that data. Um, Another big call out here for 6sense is that since you are responsible for building out your own segments, um, you really need to make sure that you think about your exclusions too. So just like any other advertising platform, not only who you're targeting, but who you're not targeting is going to be really, really important in terms of having success for your campaigns. And so if you have a customer or a competitor list, you can add those as suppressions. What you really want to do here is just make sure that you're spending money on the accounts that matter. So if you have churned accounts, if you have accounts in your Salesforce, but you want to go after anyone who's net new, you could use those as suppression lists. So just a couple of different thoughts in terms of different ways that you can add those exclusions, but at the end of the day, just make sure you're using them. So we talked about some of the basic strategies for getting started with 6sense. What are some of the KPIs to look for once you get your campaigns live? These are some of my personal favorites. So the first one is account reach. And what we want to be measuring is how many of the accounts within your segment are being reached compared to your list size. That's going to be important in terms of determining how well they're engaging with you and or if your messaging is working. The second one is website traffic. Are accounts that were once never engaged now taking visits to the site? Because that's going to be important in terms of if it's working to actually drive those type of site visits. The next one is keyword. Is the keyword intent increasing? And so are the accounts that were once never flagged for intent now starting to show those type of intent signals? Because that's also a really valuable conversation. The next one is account funnel conversions. So are accounts moving from different stages of the funnel and at what velocity? We want to make sure at the end of the day what we're doing are nurturing the accounts to move down the funnel for us. And so really measuring if that's even happening will be valuable. And the last one is keyword search quality. So we want to be looking at not only are the keywords being searched, but what type of keywords. We want to make sure that we're not just going after generic, fluffy, too broad of keywords as well. And we're able to see that those type of intent keywords that include like software or platform, it's something that's really showing us that we're seeing, that level of traction all the way from the awareness stage all the way down to a little bit more of the decision level. From there, we can also pivot over into ways to integrate 6sense with a couple other of cross-channel marketing efforts. And so the first one there to talk about is marketing emails. So if you're using 6sense, if you're able to start seeing some success and you want to start pulling that in terms of other channels to start to capitalize on some of the data, a great way to do that is by leveraging marketing emails like within your Marketo or HubSpot. And the way that you can do that is you can pull the accounts from the keyword intent of at least 6 or more. And the keyword intent of 6 or more, I believe that is 6sense's actual recommendation of like what indicates intent, but it's definitely going to be subject to your own 6sense environment and your own definition and categorization of what intent means. So make sure you tailor that specific number to, whatever makes sense for you. But based on what I've seen, about 6 sounds about right. And so you want to couple the accounts that have the keyword intents of at least 6 with at least 1 website visit, and you do have contacts inside of your CRM, but they're not listed as a target account. So you can enroll those into a Marketo nurture. So in the last podcast that I talked about, I actually talked about trigger email marketing. So this is one of the triggers that you can set up to capitalize on that type of data. The next one are sales engagements. So what is a marketing campaign if it's not partnered with sales, right? So you can leverage 6sense's data to show activity on target accounts. And if they have at least 2 or more website visits and they are a target account, you can create a Salesforce task for that BDR or AE to outreach. And the outreach can be something as simple as like a LinkedIn connection request. I know the word like outreach and sales outbound still has a little bit of cringe moments behind it, because I know we're trying to modernize both marketing and sales, right? And so we're trying to figure out like what does a modern sales org look like? But again, model this whatever makes sense for your org. And however you guys take that partnered approach to start going after and landing those type of target accounts. But one way that I've used it before is something that's a really soft follow-up from sales, and just to kind of have that multi-channel existence. So you don't want to just have sales bombard them from an outbound perspective. That is not what I'm recommending. What you want to recommend is what I am recommending, and what you want to do is to have the different channels. So you're having your display ads through 6sense. You could potentially model that within LinkedIn as well. You could also partner that from a sales outbound perspective, and you can have just simple connection requests and an email that says, hey, I'm here to be a resource, right? with a couple of like content pieces for them to consume. So nothing pushy, nothing like pitch slapping. That's what we're not what we're trying to do. So I really want to caution that as well. The next one, I mentioned that you could integrate with LinkedIn. So a great way to do this is that you can pull in the accounts that are showing that six or more intent keywords, and you can serve them remarketing ads, especially if they've taken like at least one visit to your website. And you can start supporting that journey with like customer success quotes and or, the any data points from case studies or the opportunity to read a case study or to see a video of a testimonial of one of your customers actually talking about how your product has been a lifesaver or a time saver or whatever that value prop is. And so now you're having like this multi-channel experience and an integrated approach, both with marketing and sales. And I feel like that's really cool, especially for a 6sense platform. Like if you start natively within 6sense, because you can slice and dice it so many ways, and it integrates pretty seamlessly with like LinkedIn and Facebook ads. And so I thought that could be something that you guys could find valuable for today's episode. So those are just a few thoughts. I hope I was able to get your wheels turning and, inside of your head on all the capabilities that 6sense can offer. I truly think that 6sense is a neat tool and it could benefit a lot of demand gen marketers. So, okay, that is it for now. Thank you so much for listening.